Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. This awesome tulip drawing, perfect for spring. We will add our text and our background, and then the main event will be drawing the tulips and all the textures and highlights and shadows that go along with them. The tulips are definitely the most challenging part, but I promise you can draw them too if you just take your time and follow along. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you are interested in, go ahead and subscribe. Also, if you want even more tutorials, I am now on Patreon. I am offering extra exclusive tutorials over there. So if you want to check that out, I'll have that linked in the description below. We have some really cool tutorials coming up. So check that out and sign up to join us if you would like to. Anyways, before we get started, the only thing that you will need for this drawing is to download the color palette. All of the brushes are standard Procreate brushes, and the font that we use is a standard font. So the color palette is linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just open up the file that downloads and it'll automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the drawing today. I have also included my sketch layer for the tulips along with the color palette if you need it. We will sketch everything out in the video. But if you have trouble doing that, I have included that just in case you would like to use my sketch instead. That is totally fine. I will also post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we will get started. Okay, this is the color palette that you should have downloaded, so we are just going to jump right into it. So the first thing that we're going to do is set our background color. We're going to do that by going to our layer menu, clicking on this background color layer, and selecting our first color on the first row of our color palette. Okay, and then next we are going to make the background for our tulips. And we're going to do that in the center first, and then we'll move it over, but we're going to make it in the center because we're going to use Symmetry. So we are first going to turn on Symmetry. So to do that, we will go to the gear icon in the top left. Under Canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide, and then click Edit Drawing Guide. Select Symmetry here. Under Options, we are going to set it to Quadrant Symmetry. And then go ahead and click Done. Then we just want to make sure that this layer that we're on now says assisted. It does. If yours does not, just click on the layer and turn on drawing assist. We're going to select the second color on the top row of our color palette. And we are going to use the monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. We're going to set the size of our brush to about 20%. And we're just going to make a nice rectangle here. So it's going to be taller than it is wide so that we can move it to this left side here, and it'll take up a good chunk of the left side and leave room on the right for our letters. So we're just going to start a little bit from the top of the screen and about halfway through this right half right here. So about a quarter of the way from our right side of our canvas. So about right here, a little ways from the top, start about there. Draw over to the left till you get to the center, hold it down till it turns into a perfectly straight line, and then touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. Make sure it comes together nicely in the middle there. And then go ahead and let that go. If you need to adjust it at all, you can by clicking this line button at the top, and then you can move it up and down, left or right, Try not to mess with the line itself if you need to extend it or anything, because it won't stay horizontal. As soon as you touch this blue dot and start moving it, it'll move up and down, potentially even just a little bit as well. So if your line isn't long enough and you need to extend it, just go ahead and redraw it. Otherwise, this looks good. I'm going to grab my pen tool again, and now we will connect the left and right sides. So I'll start on the right side here, right at the top where this line ends. Start right there, draw straight down, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly vertical. Then go ahead and click edit at the top if you need to. My corner isn't coming together quite right, so I'm just going to click edit. Drag that around a little bit till it's a little bit better. But again, I didn't move the blue dot, I just dragged the line itself and it stays vertical. Okay, then we're just going to add the teeniest little bit of rounding to this corner here on the inside with our brush. So I'm just going to start on one side a little ways away and just kind of make a little rounded corner there. like so. And this is the frame for our tulips. So that's all that we needed our symmetry for, so let's go ahead and turn that off. So we'll go to our gear icon, turn off the drawing guide, and then we don't see the lines anymore, but it is still active on this layer. You just don't see the lines, but that's okay. We're done with this layer anyway. So we are now just going to move this on over to our left side. So we'll click our arrow tool, make sure that snapping is turned on in the bottom left, and go ahead and just drag this over, keeping it on this yellow horizontal line here. And then essentially we just kind of want to make the distance about the same on the top and left side. So however much distance you have on this top side here, I would try to match that same distance on the left side. There will obviously be more room on the right, but that is for our letters, so that is good. If you need to adjust your shape at all too, you can. You can set it to uniform and adjust the shape bigger or smaller. Just make sure to recenter it. You can also use freeform if you want to change the shape at all. If yours is too wide or too skinny, you can stretch it out or, lengthen it, anything that you need to do. But again, just make sure it is recentered on this horizontal yellow line and our spacing on the top left and bottom look even over here. Okay, now we'll go ahead and change the background color inside this rectangle. So to do that, we are going to go to our layer menu. We are going to click on this layer 1 here with our rectangle on it and set it to reference. Go ahead and click to add a new layer. Drag it below our layer 1 there. Find our third color on the top row of our color palette, and we are just going to drag and drop it inside our rectangle to fill it in just there. Easy enough. Now we're going to add like the grid pattern in the background. So to do that, we're going to go to our layer menu, add a new layer above this pink rectangle, click on our new layer and set it to a clipping mask so that we only draw within this shape. We're going to grab our first color on the first row again, the same color that we set our background to, and that's the color that we're going to use for our grid. So now to make our grid, there is a nice standard Procreate brush that comes with Procreate. It is under the textures category here, and it's called Grid. Go ahead and find that, set our size to 100%, and we're just going to drag this all over our background, pushing down pretty hard so that we get a nice thick layer without lifting our pen up at all. Just go over it really, really good, like so. Okay, and that's as big as the grid gets on its own, so we are just going to increase the size of this layer to make our grid pattern a little bit bigger. So we'll just click our arrow tool, set it to uniform, and go ahead and just increase the size by using the corners to as big or as small as you would like. I'm probably going to set mine about here. And then we want them to be just a little bit thicker and then a little bit more faded. So what we're going to do is, we're still on our grid layer, we're going to click our wand icon, click Gaussian blur, and drag this up just the teeniest bit, like maybe 3 to 4% at the most. And that just makes it look a little bit thicker and a little bit more faded. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add our text next. And then we will finish all that up and then we'll move back to our flowers and do all of that. So we are just going to go ahead and click our gear icon, click add, and then click add text. And then a new text bubble should pop up automatically, and it automatically is on its own new layer. So just double tap to make sure that that's all selected. First, we're going to set our color. It's going to be the 4th color on the top row of the color palette. So just go ahead and select the color. It should change your text. Then with your text selected, go ahead and just click down here and then click our keyboard icon so that we can type. We're going to set it to all caps and type the word tulips. Then next we are going to change the font and stuff. So we are going to double tap our text to select it again. Click this little button up here with our font on it to open up this whole font menu. So we are going to set it to this Ina 01, which is what mine always defaults to. I'm not sure if it's the same for you or not. And then we're going to change the style here to bold. And then we'll increase the size a good amount, extend these borders if we need to. And then we're also going to extend the tracking a good amount as well. So I'm going to start with it about here. So my size is about 130 points. My tracking is at about 13%. And then I'm just going to click done. I'm going to click my arrow tool and I am just going to rotate it 45 degrees all the way until we get to it facing vertically like this. And I'm going to move it on over to this right side here and center it on our center yellow line that pops up, our horizontal line there, like so. Go ahead and adjust the size further if you need to. We want it to be about the same size as our rectangle is here from top to bottom. So I might increase mine a little bit further. So about right here is good. And then now to make it look just a little bit 3D, we are going to add a few effects to it. So we're essentially just going to add a highlight on the top left and then a shadow on the bottom right to get it to pop a little bit more. So to do that, we're going to go to our layer menu, make a duplicate of our text layer, click on the bottom one, click on it again and click rasterize. That just means that it's now more of an image than a text. We can't change the font or change the text at all anymore. It's just like a normal layer. But then we're going to click on it again, set it to alpha lock, grab our white color, the 5th one on the top row, go back to our layer here, this one that we just alpha locked, go ahead and click on it and click fill layer and you'll see your letters turn white. It's behind our purple text layer, so we can't see it on our screen, but you should be able to see it on your layer menu here. Click on it again and turn off alpha lock now. And then we are going to grab our arrow tool, move it up and to the left just a smidge so that we can see just a little bit of it poking out behind our other letters. Like so. Then we are going to give it a little bit of a blur. So to do that, we're going to go to our wand icon, click Gaussian blur, and then drag this up just a little bit to literally like 3% at the very most. Okay, then we're going to make a copy of this layer that we just did our blur to. So slide to the left and make a duplicate, select the bottom one, click on it and set it to alpha lock again so we can change the color of it. We're going to switch it to this darkest color, the 6th one on the top row. And we're going to go back to our layer menu, this one with alpha lock turned on the bottom, click on it and select fill layer to fill it with a dark color. Then we'll just grab our arrow tool and move it down and to the right until it's popping off the other side of our text like so to create a shadow on that side. Okay, and then where the corners are, there's just kind of nothing happening, so we are going to actually fill that in. So we're going to fill it in with this darker color. So we're going to go to our layer menu, this layer that we're on, click on it and turn alpha lock off so that we can draw on it. Now we're going to stick with our same dark color, the 6th one on the top row. We're going to switch our brush to the soft airbrush under the airbrushing category. Set the size to like pretty small, like 5%. And I'm just going to focus on the corners here, start drawing pretty lightly, just to kind of fix the shadow there. And so we will just do that for each one. And then it just kind of blends into our white color because our white one is on top. But then when you zoom out, that looks really nice, makes it look nice in 3D. So we're just going to do that to all the corners. So I started on that U, but I'm going to switch to my T now. So we'll do this corner here. Any corner where the white and dark color come together. Okay, so that just kind of completes everything, makes it look very 3D. It's also kind of like an optical illusion. It's kind of like it's embossed from our paper and like lifted up a little bit. So that is all that we are doing for the text. So we are done with that. So next up is our flowers and our bouquet. So we're going to sketch everything first, and then we're going to lay down the hard lines, fill with color, and then add texture and shadows and highlights. So we're just going to go to the very top of our layer menu and add a new layer there. We can stick with the same color that we're on the 6th one on the top row. We're just going to lay our sketch down first. To sketch, I am going to use the 6B pencil under the sketching category. I have my size at about 50%. Okay, and essentially, we're going to have 4 tulips. You can do more if you would like to. The main thing is that we just want them all to be a similar size, and then I want a few of them popping out of our border here. So that's why we're sketching first and not just laying down the hard lines. I just want to make sure we fill everything out correctly. So I'm going to start in the top kind of middle area here, maybe a little bit to the right of our, to the right of what would be the center of this rectangle. And I'm just going to start there, make an oval shape, hold it down till it turns perfectly smooth. It's at a little bit of an angle, that's okay. So that's going to be where my first tulip is, and we'll just set the size to about this size. Okay, and now to get them all the same size, we're just going to make a duplicate of this oval. So we'll go to our layer menu, slide to the left on this layer and hit duplicate, click our arrow tool, and now we have another one. So I'm going to move this down, place it, tilt it maybe a little bit the other way, place it about in the middle of our rectangle here. So this will be kind of our middle one. There's a small gap in between this one and our top one, and then a good amount of room down below. This will be where our bow and our stems and stuff are. I do think they're a little bit too big so far. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, select my other one as well. So slide right to select our other sketched oval. Click our arrow tool on uniform, downsize them a bit. Place them kind of where they were for this one to still be in the same spot. So slightly to the right of center, popping off the rectangle just a little bit. Then we'll go back to our layer menu, grab this top one, which is our middle one here, arrow tool, and move this one around. So then we'll kind of just place this one back maybe a little bit higher than center to leave room for like our bow and stuff down here. So just a little ways underneath our top oval there. That looks good. So now we'll make another duplicate of our oval. Grab our arrow tool. We'll tilt it further to the left and place it up in this area over here, going off our rectangle on the left side there. So that will be another tulip. Go to our layer menu, make another duplicate. Now we'll move it to the other side, rotate it the other way, and place it about here. So just kind of place them out where you want. Make sure to leave plenty of room at the bottom here for our bow and our stems and stuff, but then we'll fill the rest with like leaves and stems. So again, I ended up with 4. Do as few or as many as you would like. Make them kind of whatever sizes. You just want a good amount of room around them all for all of our other extra bits. But now that those are laid out and where we want them, we are going to go to our layer menu and snap all these layers together. So mine all say layer 7. So whatever yours say, just snap all 4 of our sketch layers together so that they're all on one layer, like so. And now we'll be on this layer and we'll continue sketching. So I'm just going to start on this middle tulip here, and we'll just kind of sketch where the stem would be. So starting at the bottom, just a little left of center, I'll sketch a line there, and then go to the right a little bit, sketch another line. Like so, going off the bottom of our screen. So that's our stem there. Nothing too perfect. We'll do it right when we actually lay the lines down. Then we'll just kind of pretend sketch a stem here as well. We won't see the bottom of it because it'll be behind all this other stuff. This one over here needs to actually be turned a little bit more because our stem right now is just going to go right here, and we don't want it to go like so sideways into it. I want it to be a little smoother. So I am just going to grab my selection tool on freehand with color fill turned off, select around that tulip, and just rotate it a little bit more. Okay, back to my pen. So now I feel like I can just kind of make it more like curved like this to go into our main area. Something like that. Same with this one. Just kind of curved into our main area. And maybe we even see the bottoms of them or the sides of them, maybe not. At the very bottom there, like so. Okay, now we'll sketch our bow really quick. We will sketch it on a new layer just so that we can move it around if we need to. So let's add a new layer and we'll just kind of create it right in the middle where all this is coming together. So first we'll create our knot, which is just going to be like a square, but like with rounded sides. So about like this. Then we'll make each side of our bow. And so on each side from the top right, from the top side of our knot here, we'll have like a really skinny oval or really long like teardrop kind of shape coming off. Like so. Then from this side, it'll go down, kind of curved, and then curve around and come back to the center, like so. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Trying to kind of match the size to our side that we already did. And then whenever you're sketching, if you need to go in with your eraser to kind of clean things up, if that's helpful to you, go ahead and do so. Okay, then again, we'll go off the side here, kind of rounded, and then come around back to the center. Okay, so already that looks good. It's a little big, so I'm just going to click my arrow tool on uniform, downsize it a good amount, recenter it kind of where I want it to be, make any other adjustments, rotate, whatever. Another good thing that we can do is, again, use our selection tool on freehand. And like, for example, this one's like longer and thicker, which I like. So I'm going to just select around this right side, right next to where the knot is, and then all the way around, click my arrow tool. Then I can just make it a little bit bigger, either on uniform or freeform, whatever works best, and just kind of place it there nicely. Okay, so that looks good. So now I'm going to go back to my pen and add the little tails of the ribbon. So just kind of poking out where the bottom of this side meets the knot. We're just going to start right there. Make a little line, just kind of wavy, going off of our rectangle. Make a little like point on the bottom, like where there's a cut in it, and then another kind of wavy line back to our knot. So that is what the end of our ribbon will look like. So then the same thing on the other side, right where this knot is. Something kind of like that. So again, my left one's like a little thinner. So I'll just go back in and kind of thicken it up a little. Something kind of like that. And then again, like I said, feel free to go in with your eraser and erase some of this stuff here if it's distracting, just so you can see which lines you really want to use when we go to lay down our actual lines. So that's our bow. So just make sure that's in a good spot. I might move mine up just a little bit on my flowers here. Still making sure to cover the stems pretty good. Okay, so that looks good. So then we can go back to our tulip layer, tulip sketch layer. And again, if you need to make any other adjustments, go ahead and do so before we kind of start adding in our other stuff. So I might just kind of make this stem like come a little closer to the middle. Same with this one. And then lastly, we're just going to add some leaves and things to kind of fill this out. So I might add a leaf on the right side here coming off of this one, and they're just going to be really sharp, like almost like blades of grass, like tulips have. So I might just make a little curved line back. So that's one blade of grass there. Maybe even going in front of this stem here a little bit. Okay, then we'll maybe add another one here, coming out of the back to go up here. Maybe even out of our rectangle, make a really big, long one. And then go back, but it'll be behind our flower. So even though I drew this part in front, it'll be behind it. Like so. Then maybe another one here. Maybe we'll see the bottom of it like on the side of our tulip right here, going back into our stem or going back into our bow. And maybe another big one on the left side here. Okay, and then they all kind of just go within our little knot of our bow here. So we just kind of nestle them all in there nicely. If we go in with our eraser tool, which I always have mine set to the monoline brush, I'll set the size to maybe like 40%. And if we just kind of erase everything in the middle where our bow knot is, that looks pretty good. This stuff is sticking a little too close to like where it wouldn't really fit in naturally. So I am going to select around this whole section here. So the tulip, its stem, and the leaf that go with it. Click my arrow tool and just move it up a little bit, maybe tilt it a little if needed, so that it just fits in a little bit more nicely. Go back in with my eraser, kind of clean this up a little bit so that we can see our stem here. Okay, and again, we have our stem coming out of the bottom here with a few coming off the side. I'll go back in with my eraser just through the middle so that we kind of can see that more clearly. Okay, so that's our sketch. So now we are going to lay down the actual lines. So that is going to be on a new layer. So we will go ahead and add that above both of our line layers. So we still have our bow on our separate layer here. So if you need to do any adjusting to that, you can. If you need to make it bigger, wider, longer, anything like that to get it in a good spot, go ahead and do so. I've also included my sketch layers, so if you have a really hard time sketching things or you can't get yours to look the way you want it to, I don't want you to get too frustrated, so I did include it for you to use. So you'll do everything else from this point on. So go ahead and import that if you need to. Just add a new layer on your layer menu, go to the gear icon and click Add, insert a file, and find the sketch layer to insert it. Okay, and then we will snap our sketch layers together here so they're all on one layer, so our bow and then all of our flowers and greenery. And then we will click the N on this layer to open up our menu and drag the opacity down so that it's much lower so we don't see it as well, so we can see what we're drawing on top of it. So I would say about 20 to 25%, somewhere in there. Then let's switch to our new layer on the top. Switch our color to the second color on the top row, the same color as our outline for our rectangle here. We are going to switch our brush to the Studio Pen under the inking category. I'm going to set my size to about 20%. Go ahead and play with that size and see if that works for you, depending on how hard or how soft you push. We just want a nice thin line to make our outline here, like so. And again, we will start with drawing our tulips. So I'm just going to start on this middle one here. And so we just laid down an oval just to get our shape kind of, but now we're actually going to draw the petals of the tulip. So I'm just going to start on the left side here, make a slightly curved line. It's mostly straight up and down, slight curve to it. Come around to the bottom, curve around there. And then we're going to kind of curve back up. Again, mostly straight. And then when we get closer to the top here, we are just going to create a little wavy line like so. And then just kind of smooth it out. So it's okay that you're, so I'm obviously going over my lines like multiple times. I'm not just doing one smooth line. So I just kind of thicken it up as I go to kind of smooth it out, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, then I'll start on the right side here and I'll just make another petal coming off of it that's just like a singular top like so, kind of curved on the right side and then meets down at the middle. And then we'll make like a back petal like so. So that is our tulip. So as you can see, it doesn't really quite take up our whole oval. It's a little skinnier, a little more straight up and down. I might make mine a little bit bigger. So I'll just click the arrow tool on uniform, maybe even freeform and make it a little bit wider and then place it there. So feel free to make adjustments as you go. Again, smooth it out a little as you go. Or like you can use your eraser tool if that helps you smooth things out. So if your lines get just way too thick and you want to make them skinnier, go ahead and use your eraser to do so. But we will move on now to our next tulip. So I'll maybe do this right one here. So I'll start on the right side this time and I will make like the curved line for the outside. Just slightly curved. Rounded at the bottom. Go back up. Maybe this time I'll make it a little bit wider and then have it kind of come up like this. So all of our tulips are going to be a little bit different. Go back in with my eraser. Okay, then we'll make another kind of single petal off the side here. Connect it at the bottom. And then another kind of back petal like so. Okay, and then even using my oval, this one got like a little bit too big, I would say. So I'm going to just use my selection tool on freehand, select around it, click my arrow tool on uniform, downsize it just a smidge there so that it's still sticking up of our rectangle. Go ahead and smooth it out. I'll thicken it up even a little in some parts. Okay, now let's move on to our left tulip here. So again, I'll start on the left side, curve a little bit on the left to the bottom, curve around. And again, maybe we'll make this one kind of skinny on this side. And then maybe we have kind of a bigger one on the right side here. Connecting at the bottom. And then our back one again. Okay, that looks pretty good size-wise, so I won't adjust that at all. I might just go in and smooth things out a little bit. Okay, and then lastly, our top one. So our top one, I'm going to make like a front petal and then 2 side petals and the back petal. So we're going to start pretty close to the top here. I'm going to make like a nice rounded area there for the front petal. Then I'll just start on the top here and make like the little teeny bumps of the petal and then kind of round it back to the beginning. So that's like our front petal. We'll do a small petal off the left side here, like so. And then on the right side here, maybe we'll have it be a little bit bigger or wider coming off, and then we'll see the teeniest bit of the back petal right there. Okay. Okay, so that's our last tulip. That one looks pretty good size-wise, so I'm not going to adjust it, but if you ever need to, again, just selection tool on freehand, select around it, click your arrow tool in either uniform or freeform, and you can adjust the size or placement or rotate it or whatever you need to do. Now we're going to draw the stems and leaves, but we are going to draw them on a new layer so that we can go back through and erase things and stuff before we meld all of our lines together onto one layer to start filling them in with our color. So we'll just go to our layer menu, add a new layer, same brush, same color, same everything, and now we'll just start drawing our stems. So I'll start again on the bottom one here. And this time I am going to draw a little bit faster to get like some good straight lines and good smooth lines. So I just draw pretty quick. If I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I just redo it. But that's kind of the key, is the quickness to it. Okay, so that one looks good. So now I'll start on this one. And I'll just kind of draw towards the middle until I get to where I want it to go and then stop. Okay, so right there is good. I might end up erasing some of this later when our grass leaf is here, but that's okay. It looks good for now. We'll do this left one. That looks pretty good. So again, it just kind of ends up hiding itself there. So same thing, eraser, you can go and erase these little bits that end up overlapping. And we'll kind of just continue on our stems down here. So behind our original stem, I will continue this line and this line where they would go. Same thing on this other stem. Okay, let's go ahead and add this top stem also, the little bit that we can see of it. And then we can start adding our grass. So we'll again draw our grass on a new layer. So let's go ahead and add a new layer on our layer menu, same brush, same color, same everything. And then we're going to start drawing our grass. So I'll start with this right petal again. So this one I'm going to have be in front of my stem over here. So right about here where the stem is, I am just going to draw a quick line going out to about where my sketch is. That looks good. We'll just start right where that is, draw back in again very fast. And then to get it nice pointy, I'll just go back in very lightly with my pen and just kind of make it pointy on the end there. So this is again why we're on separate layers now. So we'll go back into this stem layer in a second and erase this little bit that's still visible that we don't want to be visible anymore. Now we'll go up here, draw this leaf. So again, just really quick strokes. That looks good. I will go ahead and grab my eraser right now because this is going to be behind my flower, so I'll just erase any little bits of these lines that I see. Okay. Again, eraser tool, erase this one. Okay. And then lastly, we have a really big one down here, so I'll start kind of at the base of this line. Draw it out, that looks pretty good. Start at the tip here, draw back in, kind of nestling again under where my bow is going to be. Like so. Just kind of extend it here. Okay, so now the only real thing that we need to clean up so far is this stem where it overlaps. So I'm going to go back to my stem layer, grab my eraser tool, and erase, and just erase this little line here, like so. Okay, otherwise everything looks good. Nothing else is like sticking out where it doesn't need to be. So now we're going to just lastly make our bow. So let's go ahead and add a new layer on top of all of our layers, same color, same brush and everything, and we will now make our bow. So this one was laid down pretty good, so I'm just going to kind of follow what I drew originally. Again, going over all these lines, we'll erase them in a moment. We'll do the little ribbon while we're over here. Okay, and our other side of our bow. And our ribbon. Okay, so that is all of our lines done. Now the biggest thing is that we just need to go through and erase all of our stem and grass lines that are sticking into our bow. So our next layer underneath the one that we're on, it should be our grass layer. So go ahead and switch back to that layer, grab our eraser tool, just kind of start erasing anything that's inside this bow. Okay, go back, switch to our stem layer, which should be the next one underneath. Erase anything there. Okay, and then if there's anything else that you see that needs to be erased, go ahead and do so. Lastly though, I am going to erase on this stem layer these lines that are sticking out of the bottom of our rectangle. We don't want any lines down here except for our bow tails that are sticking off. So I'm just going to erase everything that goes outside of it, like so. Now is also a good time to turn off our sketch layer, so go ahead and turn that layer off on our layer menu, and then you can see better if you need to make any other adjustments or anything. So just make sure everything looks good. Obviously, these outer edges where our rectangle is, we will cover those with our color, so it is okay if those are still visible, but you shouldn't see any other visible lines inside any of our shapes. And again, smooth things out, thicken things up if they need to be, whatever works. Okay, and I'm actually just going to add one more little blade of grass up here. It just looks kind of empty right here. So I'm just going to fill that out with one more little blade of grass. Just going to kind of freehand it. Maybe just a little thin one there. Okay, that looks good. The other biggest thing is that you need to just make sure that everything is connected, so we have no gaps anywhere that our lines are. They all need to meet up with something, so they're all closed shapes. So make sure like the tips of your blades of grass are closed, make sure your stems connect to your flowers, all that kind of stuff. Make sure all of your petals are closed. Okay. And then we will go, once that's all set, we will go to our layer menu and snap all of these layers together. So I'll delete my sketch layer so I don't see it anymore, so it's not in the way. And then all these other layers, not including our rectangle layer, which is currently set to assisted reference, but everything above that, so there should be 4. Our flowers, our stems, our leaves, and our bow. Snap those together to be on one layer. Now we're going to click on this layer and set it to reference now. Okay, and then lastly, we're just going to add a few like detail lines to these. So we'll add a few to the tulips first. So just like a few, just quick, like kind of vertical lines, really quick, really short, just kind of all over, following the shapes of our tulips. Just a few on each, so maybe like 3 there, maybe a few here. Maybe a few on this one. Okay, so just on the tulips and then a couple on the bow as well. So right in the center where our knot is, coming off the knot on each side, we'll just make a couple, just like some little like wrinkle lines. We're going to add a new layer, drag it below the reference layer, and this is where we'll fill in our tulip colors. So that is going to be this first color on the second row of the color palette. So this is all the tulip colors that we'll use. The base color, highlights, shadows, and accents and all that. So this base color, this first one on the second row, we are just going to start dragging and dropping that into each of these sections for our tulips and for our bow when we get down there. So you can also drag and drop one section, click this continue filling at the top, and then tap into the other sections to fill them more quickly and easily instead of having to re-drag it each time. Okay, and that's it for that layer. We'll go to our layer menu, add another new layer, still underneath our reference layer. Grab our green color, the first one on the last row of the color palette, and again, drag and drop. Click continue filling at the top, and tap into each one of these other leaves and stems at the top until you get to the bottom. The bottom ones are not closed because they are going off the edge there. So we will just grab our pen and we will just go ahead and fill them in manually. They will go over our rectangle a little bit at the bottom here, but we will fix that in just a moment. So just fill them in all the way like so. Okay, then to get rid of the little bit of excess and get a nice straight line on the bottom that cuts off with our rectangle, we will go to our layer menu, find our rectangle layer here, click on it and click select. So now it should be selected. You should see diagonal lines everywhere. Go back to our layer menu, switch back to our green layer, grab our eraser tool and just erase at the bottom there, drag all the way around, and it'll create a very straight, perfect line. Then go ahead and click the selection tool to turn the selection off. And this is what we're left with. Okay, so now we just need to add all the shadows, highlights, details, everything. That was the hard part. The next part is fun. So we're going to do similar things to both of our colors, essentially. So we'll start with our purple color. We'll add a new layer above it, click on this layer and set it to a clipping mask, so we're only drawing within our purple shapes. We will also click on the N on this to open up our options and switch it to overlay. So this is going to create like some highlight colors. We'll grab the second color on the second row for this. Then we will switch our brush to the jagged brush under the painting category. We'll set our size to maybe 3 to 5%, somewhere in there. And we are just going to add highlights and texture all over our tulips first. So we're just going to kind of, first of all, just drag it around a little bit to create just a little bit of texture, nothing crazy. Then we'll drop our size a little bit, actually, to like 2 to 3%. And we are just going to kind of create mostly just on the edges here. So like this front edge, this top edge, then just a little bit here and there to create some more texture. Just picking up our brush a few times and going over it a few more times to create like a thicker, brighter color the closer that we get to the edge, like so. So a little texture all over, and then again just focusing on the edges. So then we'll do the same thing on the next petal, so all over it, and just kind of like at the top, kind of like this little front middle area. Again, going over it like multiple times, like so. Then we'll create the teeniest little bit of highlight on the top back part, like so. Okay, and we'll just do that for all of them now. So now we'll go to the next one. Again, just first kind of wash the whole thing in this color and texture. Always working like vertically with our petals. Okay, then we'll kind of, again, just focus on like this side to add like a highlight to this petal. Just kind of stopping where our line is. So if you need to lower your brush at all to really stay within your lines, go ahead and do so. We'll add some more to this side as well in the top here. Then the next petal. And the top of this back petal as well. Okay, moving on. Again, one big kind of wash over everything to add some initial texture. Then we'll just kind of focus on this top right kind of side, kind of just all through the middle a little bit on this one. But again, mostly on the top. And then add some more on the right. And the right side mostly there. Our final tulip. Again, texture all over. Do a little bit on the back. And then mostly this right side. And the right side on this one as well, since that one's closer to the light. Okay, that looks great. Then we'll do the same thing to the bow. So again, just kind of following the shape of the bow. So just kind of all over. We'll leave this back part alone because this is going to be a lot darker. So this little teardrop shape, we'll leave that untouched. But again, just kind of follow the shape there. Follow the shape here. And then this middle knot part, we're just going to kind of do the whole thing a little bit to add some texture. And then we're just going to focus on the top right kind of side to add some highlight there. Okay, so extra highlights here. And then maybe the teeniest bit on like the top left, just because it would kind of be sticking out a little bit maybe. I got a little bit into here, but that's okay. I'll maybe cover that up in a little bit with our next shadow layer, but try to avoid that if possible. And then on this right side though, we'll kind of add a highlight just like all through the middle some more. Just a little bit to just add some variation, but then we mainly want to focus on this top right side. Might lower my brush even further to like low 2 to 1%, so I can really focus on this without going into my next section. Okay, same thing on the left side here, all through the middle for the most part, and then I'll lower my size again. And the teeniest bit just on the top side here where our light would hit. Kind of this corner. Okay, then we'll do the same thing on our ribbons here, just kind of all over for texture. And then mainly on the top side here. Same thing on the other side. Okay, so then that's it for that highlight layer. So then next we are going to add a shadow layer. So we'll add a new layer on our layer menu right above the one that we were just on. Click on it and also set it to a clipping mask. So it'll clip to the same original purple color that we laid down. This time we will click the N on this layer and set it to multiply. This is a good shadow layer style. So same color, same brush even, and we are just going to go in and add some shadows. So if you start drawing, you'll see it just gets a little darker. So we'll just add some shadows kind of where our petals meet. So I'll just kind of follow the shape of this petal even. Maybe a little bit of shadows just down on the bottoms here. Just to kind of darken things up and just create more contrast and stuff. So make them especially dark like in this middle area. Okay, so I'll move on to this one. Adjust the size even further down if you need to. 1%, that's as low as it gets, but if you need it that low, like I do, that is fine. Kind of adjust it as we go. Okay, so that's it for the shadows on our tulips. Then we'll move down to the bow here. And we mainly want to add a nice shadow inside these little loop areas. So go over that. Pretty much just really good. Just all the way there to darken that up. And then maybe we'll add just the teeniest bit of shadows kind of right here where our little wrinkles are. And then maybe right where our bow meets our ribbon. Add a little shadow there as well. Like so. Okay, lastly, we are going to add another new layer. Set it to a clipping mask. This time we will leave the style on normal. We are going to switch our color though to this third color on the second row. And we are going to switch our brush back to the soft airbrush under the airbrushing category that we used earlier in our letters. Connecting our edges there. Okay. We'll set the size to about 10%. And we're just going to create some really bright highlights now on our petals and our bow where our sun would be hitting it. So again, our sun is coming from the top / top right. So we are going to start on this like top right tulip here, and right on the back one here, we'll just create a nice highlight there. Create a nice highlight here. Just following the shape of our petals, kind of letting it like taper out at the end by getting it closer to our line. Erase any that goes over the line if you need to, like that. Or you can lower your size if this size is too big. So we'll just do that to all of them. Okay, so that is good on my tulips. So now I'll move down to my bow here. And again, yeah, we'll just add like a little highlight to the top right part of our knot. And then the top right part of this bow corner. Maybe just along the top of this ribbon, just very slightly. Then on this side, since it's coming from the top right, maybe just a little bit along the top side here, just barely. And then for this ribbon down here, maybe just on like the ends down here where the sun would maybe eventually reach it. Okay. That is it for our tulips for now. We will add one tiny thing at the very end, which we'll do to our grass at the same time. So that is it for our tulips for now. So make any other further adjustments if you would like to. Otherwise, we will move on and do essentially the same exact thing to our grass now. So we'll find our green grass layer, add a new layer above it. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. This first one we are going to set to overlay again. We'll grab the second color on the second row of our color palette. Switch back to our jagged brush under the painting category. Still at about 2 to 3% at the very most. And again, we're going to just kind of go all over them with this to add just like a little texture at first, following the same direction as the stem. Then we are going to just follow the sides again. So I will drop my brush size pretty low to like the low 2% so that I can really just focus on each stem individually. But we'll add some highlights kind of all over and then just again focus on like the right side, like here. Same thing down here. Okay, next one. Right side again. Next one. The right side a little bit there. So that looks beautiful. Okay, now let's do our next stem to the right here. So again, we'll kind of follow that same direction. This one, we're going to actually do like the left side of the stem technically because that's like on the top since it's slanted. And then same thing for this blade of grass. All over. And then focus on the top. Okay, now we'll do the left side here. All over, and then focus on the right side. Same with this blade of grass. Okay, so that is a good start on our grass. So we are not going to do the multiply layer like we did with our flowers. I just don't feel like there's really many places that need a shadow as much as our flowers did. So we'll skip that step, but we will add another new layer, click on it and set it to a clipping mask and make our main really bright highlights. So we will again leave it on normal. We will switch to our third color on the bottom row of the color palette. And we will switch back to our soft airbrush under the airbrushing category. Still at about 10% or so. And we are going to make our really bright highlights on our grass area. So just on the very, very tips again, very lightly. Mainly just on the grass petals, not so much on the stems. So really just the very tips of our grass petals here. We'll just add this bright color. As we get closer to the middle, just kind of fade it out a little bit. So just go a little bit lighter. Like so, very simple there. Okay, and then the very last thing is we're just going to add the teeniest little bit of more details to both of these, and we're going to do that at the same time, same layer. So we are going to go to our layer menu, add a new layer. No clipping mask or anything, but do click on the N and set it to overlay again. And now we're going to use these last two colors on each line. So the second row again is the flowers, the last row is the greenery. So these last two colors are going to be highlights and shadows on each respective color. So we'll start with our fourth color on the second row, so the grayish color on our purple row. We're going to switch our brush to the dry ink brush under the inking category. We'll set it to about 10%, pretty low. And this is going to be our highlight color on our tulips. And we are just going to go through and just make tiny little lines very, very lightly, kind of following our petal shapes, just to add like a little bit of texture to them. So if you need to adjust your size up or down, go ahead and do so, but we're just going to do this all the way through. We'll add a few on our bow as well. Maybe some like little diagonals right in the middle there. Okay, and then same layer, same brush, we're just going to switch our color. So we're going to do this last color on the second row, this dark grayish purple on our purple row. And then this is going to be our kind of like shadow color, but just same idea. We're just going to go through and make some of these lines as well, just to give some more depth to our flowers and more texture. And then a few on our ribbon bow as well. Then And we're going to do the same thing for our leaves and our stems. On the same layer, we're just going to use different colors. So same exact layer, same brush. Now we'll just switch to the 2 colors on our green row. So the 4th color on the last row we'll use first to do some highlights. So just same idea. Very, very light. Following the direction. And then once you're done with that, darker color on the last row, so the 5th one in line, same thing. Okay, so that completes all of our texture, highlights, shadows, and everything to complete our flowers. So that is the end of the drawing. Everything else is completely done. That was the main event. So that being said, I hope you had fun. If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more tutorials from me in the future. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it, so go ahead and post it and then tag me so that I can check it out. While you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching!